August 9th, 1944. Outside the village of Mortain, France, on the rubble-strewn farm road the Germans called Strasse 177, Hauptmann Werner Kortenhaus, commanding officer of a reconnaissance element from the 2nd SS Panzer Division Das Reich, pressed his binoculars against the gap in a stone wall and watched something he would spend the rest of his life trying to explain. He was watching Americans bury their dead. By every principle of battlefield efficiency that Kortenhaus had been trained to understand, what he was seeing made no military sense. A unit under active contact, mortars landing within 400 meters, and the Americans had stopped to recover their fallen, log their identification tags, wrap them in their own shelter halves, and carry them rearward on litters, not abandoned, not tagged and left, carried. What Kortenhaus was watching wasn't sentiment, it wasn't American softness, it was the outward sign of a structural choice made 3 years earlier in Washington, a choice that would shape the psychology, the unit cohesion, and ultimately the combat performance of every American division in the European theater. And by the time German intelligence finally understood what it meant, the war was already over. This is not a question of cruelty versus compassion. That framing is too simple, and it misses the argument entirely. The Wehrmacht was not indifferent to its fallen soldiers. The Volksbund Deutsche Kriegswerdefürsorge, the German War Graves Commission, had been maintaining battlefield cemeteries since the First World War. German soldiers received individual burial when circumstances permitted. Officers of the old Prussian tradition believed in the dignity of the fallen. None of that is in dispute. But the Wehrmacht's philosophy of the dead, embedded in doctrine, in training, and in the deep assumptions of its command culture, operated on a single foundational premise. The dead are a logistical problem, and logistical problems are resolved after the tactical problem. First, you win the ground, then you collect the bodies. It was a coherent philosophy. For most of military history, it was the only philosophy. In the Napoleonic Wars, in the Franco-Prussian War, in the grinding attritional slaughter of 1914 to 1918, armies left their dead where they fell until the situation permitted recovery. A unit that stopped to collect its casualties during active contact was a unit that had lost its tactical discipline. In the German command framework, that was not compassion, that was disorder. And the German army of 1944 was still operating on that framework because the framework had worked. It had worked in Poland in 1939. It had worked in France in 1940. It had worked in the opening campaigns in Russia in 1941. The Haupttragstaktik system, decentralized mission command, aggressive forward momentum, decisions pushed to the lowest capable level had produced some of the most stunning operational victories in modern military history. The assumption buried inside all of that success was this: speed is survival. Pause to tend the fallen, and you give the enemy time to regroup, to reinforce, to kill more of your living men. The dead cannot be helped, the living can. And a soldier who understood this, who had truly internalized it, would not let grief compromise tactical logic. That was what the German army taught. That was what the German army believed. But there were 3 things the German command structure did not understand about what the Americans were doing. The first was visible. Kortenhaus saw it from behind his stone wall. The second required reading a document that didn't reach German intelligence until it was too late. And the third, the deepest layer, the one that explains why the policy worked, was something the Germans could not have understood at all, because it emerged from a decision not made in a military headquarters, but in a Senate subcommittee hearing in Washington, D.C. in February of 1942. Hold that date. We will come back to it. And hold one name: Lieutenant Colonel Edmund Gregory. Before the war, he had been a quartermaster bureaucrat, a man who managed supply depots and filed inventory reports. The Germans would never have allowed a man like Gregory to make a decision that shaped the psychology of an entire army. On March 14, 1942, the United States War Department issued what became known informally as the Mortuary Affairs Directive, a formal commitment embedded in Army Regulation 30-1825 that established, for the first time in American military history, a dedicated graves registration service with operational priority status. Not a post-war cleanup function, not a rear echelon task, a frontline commitment, staffed by soldiers whose sole mission was the recovery, identification, and dignified processing of American battle dead during active operations. Most histories of American logistics in World War II treat this as a minor administrative footnote. It was not a footnote. It was one of the most consequential structural decisions the American military made in the entire war, and its effect on combat performance had nothing to do with logistics. The man most responsible for pushing it through was Brigadier General Thomas Larkin of the Army Service Forces, but the philosophical architecture behind it came from a quieter source. Congressman Andrew May of the House Military Affairs Committee had been receiving letters from the families of men killed in the Pacific, not asking for medals, not asking for explanations, asking one question: where is he? What happened to him? Is he somewhere or is he nowhere? May brought those letters to a hearing. The Army's initial position was that systematic battlefield recovery was tactically impractical. The dead were dead. The living needed the resources. General Larkin disagreed. His argument, documented in the hearing transcript held at the National Archives, Record Group 407, was not sentimental. It was operational. He said, "A soldier who believes his army will abandon him when he falls will not fight the same war as a soldier who believes it will not." That sentence is the architecture of everything that follows. The graves registration units that deployed with American divisions from 1943 onward were not large. A divisional graves registration platoon consisted of approximately 59 enlisted men and 2 officers. They carried litters, identification tags, and a field morgue kit. They worked close to the front, sometimes under fire. Their job was to reach the fallen before the situation stabilized, to identify them, to document the circumstances of their death, and to ensure that the family at home received not a form letter saying missing in action, but a specific accounting: where he fell, what unit he was with, and where he is now buried. This was expensive. It diverted manpower. It created tactical friction. Every senior officer who read the initial proposal understood those costs. What they could not quantify, what Larkin had understood intuitively, and the hearing record suggests he struggled to articulate in bureaucratic language, was the return on that investment in the psychology of the living. Every American soldier in a forward unit carried a set of 2 identification tags, the M1940 pressed steel dog tags, stamped with name, serial number, blood type, and religion. One tag stayed with the body for identification. One was pulled and carried rearward to the unit recorder. The system was not new, but combined with the graves registration commitment, it created something that had no German equivalent: a promise embedded in doctrine, institutionalized in procedure, made tangible in the weight of a steel tag in a soldier's palm. You will not disappear. If you fall here, someone will come for you. Your name will be recorded. Your family will be told. You will not be left in a French field without a marker. That promise was not printed in any field manual. It didn't need to be. A soldier watched what happened to the man who fell next to him. He watched the graves registration team come forward. He watched them wrap his friend in a shelter half and carry him rearward with tender care. The Germans could not explain why American units recovered from casualty events so quickly. After-action reports from multiple divisions noted it. The men would lose a sergeant, lose 2 privates, lose a machine gun crew, and within hours, sometimes within minutes, the unit's tactical performance seemed to reconstitute, not perfectly, not without grief, but faster than German doctrine predicted.
faster than German experience suggested was possible. They attributed it to American phlegmaticism, to a cultural shallowness that prevented deep attachment. Some German officers in their private diaries wrote that the Americans simply didn't care about their dead as deeply as German soldiers cared about theirs.
Oberstleutnant Hans Heinrich Dibbern commanded the 916th Grenadier Regiment of the 352nd Infantry Division, the same division that held the bluffs above Omaha Beach on June 6, 1944. Dibbern survived the Normandy campaign and was captured in August 1944. His interrogation transcript, conducted by U.S. 1st Army G2 at a processing facility near Cherbourg and preserved in the National Archives as NARG 407, entry 427, box 19-114, runs to 31 pages. On page 17, the interrogating officer asks Dibbern what surprised him most about American infantry performance after the initial beach landing. The answer is not about firepower, it is not about logistics, it is not about air support. Dibbern said, "They did not behave as men who expected to be abandoned." He elaborated. In his experience commanding against Soviet forces on the Eastern Front in 1942 and 1943, a unit that took heavy casualties, especially officer casualties, entered a period of what he called Orientierungslosigkeit, disorientation, a kind of collective paralysis that could last hours, sometimes days, while the unit's command structure reconstituted and the men reoriented to their new reality. He expected the same from the Americans after Omaha. The casualties on the first day had been catastrophic. By any calculation he could apply, the American units that made it off the beach should have been combat ineffective for 48 to 72 hours. Consider what Dibbern was looking at from his position above the bluffs. By the afternoon of June 6th, American units had taken 30 to 40% casualties in some companies. Officers were dead, sergeants were dead. Men were leading who had never led before. The beach itself was still under fire, and yet, and Dibbern noted this specifically in writing, in a document he had no reason to flatter the Americans in, the units continued to push inland. Not with perfect tactical form, not without confusion, but they pushed. They did not lie down on the sand and wait for someone to tell them what to do. Dibbern wrote, "I concluded that their system of preparing men for the death of their comrades was fundamentally different from ours. I did not understand the mechanism at the time." Generalmajor Gerhard Graf von Schwerin commanded the 116th Panzer Division during the Normandy campaign and wrote a post-war analysis for the U.S. Army's Historical Division, one of the German Report series manuscripts produced between 1945 and 1954 at the behest of American historians. His assessment of American infantry resilience under casualty stress runs to 11 pages. His conclusion, stripped of its careful military language, is essentially this: American soldiers mourned their dead faster than German soldiers did. Not because they cared less, but because the institutional process of acknowledgement, the recovery, the identification, the visible act of carrying the fallen rearward, compressed the psychological arc of grief into a form that could coexist with continued combat. The most striking document in this body of evidence is not an after-action report, it is a letter, written on September 4, 1944 by Hauptmann Friedrich Bertenroth of the 12th SS Panzer Division Hitlerjugend to his wife in Cologne. The letter was captured when Bertenroth's command post was overrun outside Falaise. It is preserved in the Bundesarchiv Militärarchiv in Freiburg, file RH26-12-36. Bertenroth describes watching American soldiers recover a dead comrade from a burned-out half-track on the side of a road. The recovery took 11 minutes. It was conducted under sporadic small arms fire. The men who performed it were from a different unit than the dead man. They had stopped because they saw the body and stopped. He wrote, 11 minutes, under fire, for a man they did not know. I watched my own men watching them do it. I knew in that moment that we had already lost something we could not recover. This requires honesty with what the German system did well, because it did a great